Cool.
All right. Yes, y'all. It's your boy, DJ Klyph. We're back again, man. This is another episode of DJ Klyph Presents, the podcast. And once again, if you haven't stayed up with what we've been doing, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, on SoundCloud. Just search for DJ Klyph, DJKLYPH. And of course, you can also follow on the website, www.djklyph.com. A bunch of places that you can get caught up on some of the dope conversations that we've been able to have here. And this one here is probably way too long time coming to do this one, because this cat is somebody that when I first started kind of doing this thing, building with the local music scene, he was one of the first people who kind of pointed me in the direction that I should go in. And so it's really cool to have this gentleman on the podcast. So go ahead and let everybody know who you are.
Hey, hello. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here. My name is Kenny. I run the Fresh Selects label.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I'm not too good at being my own hype man. I need you on that, Klyph.
Look at you, man. Kenny Fresh, man. The label is Fresh Selects, and it's so dope to see kind of where it's at right now, and so a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, man. So I guess that's the the first thing to kind of go back, and I don't even know if you're gonna remember this, but we were at this spot over at the Sunday Lounge.
Yeah, it was a spot next door. It was Theo's, or whatever, the sandwich spot.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah, and I was like, yo, I'm trying to connect with some people, do this, that, and the other. And like you were running down, you should reach out to this person, you should reach out to that person. So thank you, because I mean you're a big reason, for making this happen. But I want to talk about that because I think one of the places where I really saw your skill level in bringing people together was when you got involved with The Fix. Let everybody know what The Fix is. What The Fix was, I guess. Yeah,
The Fix was it was a Portland pillar, as far as hip-hop goes. It was I'm not even the right one to give the proper history lesson, but my involvement in The Fix, by the time I turned 21, I'm 27 now, so when I turned 21, like The Fix had already been going for maybe like 2 or 3 years, and it was a weekly hip-hop party. At the time, they played all vinyl, and pretty much through most of its run, they played all vinyl. At the very end, they started to incorporate Serato and stuff like that, but for like way longer than most parties were doing. Even now, everyone it's like a resurgence of like all vinyl parties. They were just doing it like they had never stopped. But it was every Thursday, and it started at one spot, I believe it's called the Nightlight. That was a little bit before my time, but by the time I started going to it, it was at Sunday Lounge every Thursday. And that was actually the first hip-hop party I ever went to, because their first... it was 3 resident DJs. It started off Rev Shines of the Lifesavers, Omega Watts of Lightheaded, and all his solo stuff, and then DJ Kez, of course, of 360 Vinyl, and then later on Omega moved, and Dun Diggy stepped in, and as the new third. But the first time they ever had a guest DJ, it was Waajeed, who's a really dope producer and DJ, an artist from Detroit, and he just so happened to be kind of like my mentor in music, and he was the one who put me on to a bunch of stuff, and it was the first time he'd ever played Portland, so he hit me up like, yo man, I got this show in Portland, like you got to come through. And I wasn't even 21 at the time, but he told him, he was like, yo, this is my man, you got to let him in. They were like, okay, whatever. So that was the first time I'd ever been to a club at all.
Wow.
So my first experience was at The Fix, and then just kind of in the way things kind of go, for me at least, it kind of everything came full circle. And a few years later, I think by the time I was 23 or somewhere around there, it was 2010, I took it over, and I was now throwing the party.
Yeah.
And there's a whole long story, behind all that and how that came to be. But long story short, I was, we never really got into titles, but I was like the booker, promoter, producer. Like, they would DJ and I did essentially everything else, book the other acts and promote the shows and produce the shows as they happened. But yeah, that was cool. That was like one of the few... A lot of people think that I throw a lot of shows, and I don't. I just did it because it was such a good opportunity, and we had there was a company, VTech, who were looking to sponsor events, and I got in touch with them. I was doing things with them involved with the website, so it was kind of like it was just an opportunity where they, you know, wanted to do an event series, and it was too good to pass up. So as kind of I have with everything, someone offered me something that was too good for me not to do, so I just taught myself how to do it to kind of keep up with the opportunity, and it turned out to be great. Like I threw the party for like a year. It's like 12 months straight, and we had Madlib, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Erykah Badu, a surprise show with Erykah Badu. That was like our biggest one. But then on the other end, I was able to bring out a lot of smaller artists who normally we wouldn't be able to afford because they didn't have much of a following in Portland yet. Yeah. Like there's this really great group from Denmark called Coultraine, who are now pretty big, you know, act on a major label. We had them on their first U.S. tour at the Fix, and I think we had it for free. It was like them and Exile, which was a great show. We had Blue with a full live band performing his new album a few months before it came out. And that's one of the few shows he ever did, like with that band. Bilal, all types of people. So it was dope. It was one of my favorite years so far.
It's just crazy to me, but I want to go back just a little bit. So you touched on it, man. Just
we're skipping a lot of stuff. Sorry, my story, my little career path, or whatever you want to call it. It's a lot of detours, and it's not always the most linear thing. But somehow it's all kind of driven to where we at now, one way or another.
Well, speak. I just want to give you a chance for a minute to speak on Waajeed. Like you said that he was a mentor. I mean, how did that even? Like that's not.
That was a crazy
like we
thing.
In Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, I was in Beaverton, Oregon at the time, so it was even crazier.
Okay.
I was in my mom's basement, 17 years old. But yeah, it was just a weird thing. I was just a nerd, man. I was just a big fan of his music. He had a group called Platinum Pied Pipers. They had just put out their first album, Triple P. This was in 2005. I was a huge fan of it. I was just online. This was before Twitter and I think Facebook was around, but it wasn't kind of what it is now. But I was on like message boards, like OK Player, like, yo, the new PPP album is so tight. It's the best thing out. And, you know, I don't know, sometimes people would be like, nah, I don't like it. And I would get into them like, what? You're tripping. This is the best thing. And I don't know, I guess like somehow or another, like they saw that. Waajeed and Jackie, who used to run the label with him, Blink 47 was the label. I think Jackie was the main one, where she would just kind of like, just Google the group's name and see what people were talking. And she would just always see my name, just always see this name, Kenny Fresh, like always talking about, the album. And then they had a contest where they, he had done this mix CD for 555 Soul. And you couldn't buy it anywhere. It's like they're only giving it away at shows and stuff. And of course they weren't coming here. So they had a contest where it's like some trivia question about like how many tracks did Waajeed produce on the album. Hit us up and you'll get a free copy. So I hit him up, and it was a trick question because he produced all the tracks on the album. But I was like, but so-and-so co-produced this song and so-and-so. I gave like way too long of an answer. That's just a nerd, just a 17-year-old music geek. And they hit me up and they were like, yo, like we've actually been looking for you. Like you're the Kenny Fresh we keep seeing everywhere. But we didn't know how to get in contact with you. Like we're looking for someone to be like our intern, like our online intern. Would you be down? I was like, yeah, okay, like I'm with it. Do I still get the CD? And they're like, yeah, you get the CD, but we want to work.
I do whatever you want, but yo, can I get that CD though?
And I got it. It is a dope CD too. I listen to it to this day. But yeah, so it all started with that, and kind of really what the job was like doing social media, but that wasn't really a term that it existed or what people were calling it at the time. So I like ran all the artist MySpace pages for like Waajeed and the group PPP, and then I wrote like email blasts. These are things that I later found out like are actual jobs in like marketing terms. I was like a copywriter is what they call it if you do it at like an ad agency. But I was like a copywriter for them and wrote all their email blasts and their weekly news updates on the sites, and I was kind of teaching myself how to blog. And it was cool, and it was a great opportunity. And then that led to all types of stuff. I was like kind of assistant A&R. I was like selling beats for them to other artists for a minute, which was really cool. They took me on tour. For the only time I left the country, Waajeed took me to Europe. It was him and Tarak, who's was another one of my favorite artists. Before I met him, and now I could say he's like a actual friend. I was 18, 19 at the time, so it was like my first time like again, going to clubs. It was right after he came here to the Fix. He came here to the Fix, and I flew to New York, and we all flew out together to Europe. But we were over in Europe for like a month. I was like the tour manager, road manager, whatever you call it. Yeah. But man, that was the game changer. Like, that changed everything for me. I was like, okay, this is like what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do music, you know, full time. So
it's crazy I think now I'm old enough to know when it was, it was hard enough. You're a fan of an artist, and that artist is so at a distance, at least based on what I know. But it's crazy to think that that's where you were. Like you said, you were simply a fan, and then became truly a part of what they were doing, which is dope.
Yeah, and it's still, to this day, it's still like the effect isn't lost on me, and not like I still feel like that fan. Yeah. Anytime I like put out a project or am involved with something, I still listen to it as a fan, and I still talk to these artists on the phone like as a fan, you know? Like, it's still crazy to me to this day, and it's been 10 years at this point, Wow. But it's still like, I'm still like that music nerd. I don't live in my mom's basement anymore, but sometimes I feel like I do,
In here with Kenny Fresh or Fresh Select. So then I was just really enjoying all that you and the rest of the crew and everybody that was involved was doing in terms of all the the Fix events. Like you ran down some of the names. Getting an opportunity to see P-Rock and CL Smooth, Erykah Badu. That was just...
That was
crazy, bro.
Yeah, sometimes we have video of it. Otherwise, I don't think I don't know if I would believe that it happened, you know? It was kind of surreal. But yeah, it happened. It was dope. And we had Georgia Ann Muldrow and Dudley Perkins open up for him. That in itself would have been a great show, you know? But yeah, with them together, and yeah, that was a special one. I was telling someone about it the other day who didn't know me back then, and they didn't believe me, or they were like, what? How come you never told me? I was like, I don't know, it never really came up with it. I pulled out the video and was showing it. I was watching it again myself. I was like, damn, that was pretty tight. That was a good time.
That was crazy, man. And it was really sad to see, to kind of see all that come to an end.
Yeah.
Like so many other things do.
Right. Especially in, quote unquote nightlife or any type of like parties or promoting. It's like it's a temporary thing, you know? Like, a lot of those experiences, they just last one night. Yeah. And then, we were lucky enough to... I don't know if I would have done it on my own, but part of the terms of our sponsorship with VTech is that we needed to make videos for them to give them content, and I'm so grateful for that, because now we have like a permanent record of it, because you always hear stories about these like legendary nights or concerts that happen in different cities, and it's like all you have is stories, and that's cool too. Like, it's kind of special that you had to be there, but it's dope that like we actually have footage of it, and they were cool. Like, we had like a really good video guy who did like a great job, so we got so it's cool. I'm glad, and a lot of things I've done have been kind of like short-lived for that one thing, then they kind of fit into a bigger picture that's been 10 years in the making, but I don't really sweat that, like, I kind of know everything is only gonna last for so long. I just kind of roll with it for as long as I can, and I don't try to force things to live, when it's not working anymore, you know?
Right. Well, man, it's got to take a lot of, I think to a certain extent, it's got to take a lot of guts to be able to let one thing go and move on to the next. Even when you're not even sure what the next thing is going to be yet.
Yeah, I definitely don't. There's definitely been some downtime in between a lot of these transitions. I don't know if guts is the word, but it's been something. It might have been naive, or I don't know. But I don't know if it's guts, but yeah. But I don't know. I just keep it moving. I just know. I always know that things will kind of work themselves out if I just keep doing what feels right to me, and even if they don't work out, a lot of the times those are the things I learn from the most, you know?
Yeah. In here with Kenny Fresh, man, the Fresh Select. So around that time, when as I sort of follow more of what you were doing, and I don't remember if you told me about it or how I actually first. I think you must have told me about the Fresh Selects website. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you did, because I went on the website and you were telling me, well, it's like I haven't updated it in a minute and we're going to revamp it. And it was really cool because I felt like, just like what you were doing in bringing the events to people to see things live, you were also presenting music that, like, stuff that I hadn't heard of via the Fresh Selects website. So talk about that.
Yeah, so kind of in between what we've covered so far is like that's the big missing piece. So started in 2005 with Waajeed and Blink 47, went on tour 2007, and then I came and I was like working retail, like a CD store, you know, I was like 17, 18, still living with my mom, you know, and then yeah, like I kind of had that like light bulb eureka moment while on tour, just, you know, and actually working with artists that I really appreciate in person and hearing all their stories, and both of them, Tarak owned his own label as well, so just kind of hearing that definitely planted the seeds for what I'm doing now, you know. What is that, like 8 years later, 7 years later?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just knew, and so at the time I was also kind of doing like PR. I was doing whatever I possibly could to help out with Blink 47, and part of that was kind of PR and trying to get our stuff like that was right around when kind of music blogs were really kind of starting to become the new thing, and magazines were kind of phasing out. But at the time it was really just like rap blogs, like Two Dope Boys and Nah Right, you know, which are both still huge and still around today. It was before Complex. Complex was still a magazine. It wasn't really a blog. OK Player wasn't a blog yet. So there wasn't really, and if you don't know Waajeed's music, his stuff, like, you know, he was a part of the whole Slum Village, Detroit, hip hop, J Dilla movement and sound, but he also did so much other stuff. He had, you know, R&B and soul stuff, and even some like, you know, dance, Detroit techno kind of stuff. So he didn't really fit into what Two Dope Boys or Not Right or any website was talking about at the time. So it was frustrating. I was like, man, like I feel like the artists on our label are putting out stuff that's better or, you know, just as good as everyone else, but we're not getting any coverage. And, you know, and I'm like on the internet all day anyway. It's like, man, I need to start a website. Like I'm going to be the website, like, for, you know, these artists. So that was the plan, and I reached out to some people who were some designers. At the time, we had like a kind of like a Portland little hip hop crew. I think my friend was trying to start a label. At the time, I didn't really feel like ready to do a label, and I knew I always wanted to do a label, but I didn't want to do it so I could do it right. So I was like, yeah, you start it and I'll kind of help out with it, and I'm gonna make this website, and I'm gonna use, like, I'll get exclusives from Waajeed and Tarak and all these other artists that they were working with, like Invincible and stuff like that, and then we can kind of get a little, you know, because those artists already had a following. Like, they were doing well. There was just no websites covering them or writing about them. So I was like, yeah, we'll kind of get a following through that. Then we can kind of slip in, you know, the new label. The label was called Thriller, which is funny now because, like, a lot of the artists, like Ep from T&E was on it.
Oh, okay.
Dave Noddy, Devin who's moved to San Francisco, and he does really well with like the beat instrumental stuff. DJ Flip Flop, Dane was a part of it. It was cool. It was like, it was a cool crew. So I was like, all right, this producer High Res, who's really dope too. So I was like, yeah, so, you know, I'll kind of have this kind of built-in following with all these exclusives that, you know, kind of like somewhat big names, and we can kind of slip in the local stuff, and you know, that was kind of the plan. So I did it. And like I think like Waajeed again really blessed me. Like one of the very first posts he has a song on the PPP record with J Dilla rapping on it called "Act Like You Know." And he had done he had two songs. One was "Act Like You Know," the other one was "Shotgun." He had done a remix to "Shotgun" with a new, you know, Waajeed beat, and then there was like this is after, it's like 6 months to a year. I think it was like a year or so after Dilla had passed. And he had a verse from Dilla that he had recorded but never made the album, and he put it on the remix. So to hear a lost JD verse, like still to this day, that's a huge deal. So he gave me that. Like I wasn't there was no, I mean, it wasn't even any other site he could have gave it to, but still the fact that he like gave it to me, and then he was in London at the time, and one of my favorite DJs, radio DJs, is Benji B in London, and Waajeed was on Benji B, and he shouted me out. He was like, yeah, because he played the song. Yeah. He was like, yo, go to freshselects.net. And Benji B was like, oh yeah, shout out to Kenny. Like they like, so that's where I started. That was like day one. It was like such an unfair, advantage. But so like it did well. Like day one, like that was the precedent that was set. And then, Tarak, he gave me like a whole beat CD to put out, and then like 2 tracks, that to this day I've never come out on anything, and they were all free downloads, and the website had a cool design. Like it was dope. Like I can look back on it now and be like, damn, like at the time I was still critical of it, but now I'm like, yeah, that's pretty dope. Like so and it kind of built up a following, but no one in Portland seemed to know about it, just like my friends, but yeah, it was really more of like LA, New York, Amsterdam, London, Detroit. A lot of people thought I was from Detroit because a lot of the artists I was working with. So yeah, that was kind of the foundation. And then it wasn't really till I got the opportunity to do the fixed stuff with VTech and all of that because of the website. Right. And so from that kind of led to me doing the concert series. And the concert series, I think, is when Portland started to kind of get to know me and realize what Fresh Selects was, because Fresh Selects was already 2.5 years deep at that point, So people were like, what? Like, there's this website, like, that's been going on, like, right here, and we didn't even know it. So that was kind of cool to kind of get some love from home, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so that was kind of the real genesis of it all, was the website, and a lot of stuff has, come from that. That's when I started the Fresh Selects name, and everything I've done since then has been under that.
Yeah, it's funny because hearing that backstory, because I always thought it was interesting that you did have that Detroit connection. Like, I didn't know all that, because you would bring, like you said, you'd bring artists out who had that Detroit connection, and I just thought, well, maybe that was just the sound that you were digging.
It was, yeah. Like, I've never, to this day, I've still never even been to Detroit.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just kind of, Jay Dilla was, one of my favorite producers when he was still alive. It wasn't like, something I learned about after the fact. Like, I was a big fan, Slum Village, Fantastic Volume 2 when that first came out. And and then, I'm just a nerd. So I was reading the credits. And that's when I first heard about Waajeed, because Waajeed produced a bunch of tracks. Some of my favorite tracks on Slum Village's third album, Trinity. Yeah. And then that's where I found out about Black Milk, and he produced tracks on there as well. Yeah. Elzai, he was in the group at the time. And it just kind of, just all kind of snowballs. Then this is the MySpace era, so then you see, who's in who's top 8. You find out about Guilty Simpson or, Fat Cat or whoever. Yeah. But yeah, I've always been really into Detroit music. But yeah, that's a funny thing. A lot of people assumed I was from there. Or at the time, Waajeed, he was living in Brooklyn when I was working for him. Yeah. So a lot of people thought I was from New York too. But yeah, and it was kind of like, I don't know, Portland. A lot of people outside of Portland had never really heard of the city or knew much about it until just recently. Yeah. Now it's kind of become like more of a somewhat of a destination. At the time, people were like, Oregon.
Right.
What's going on
Western Oregon, no doubt.
I don't know.
No doubt. All right, so then kind of fast forward a little bit, you were working with people who, like you said, were just kind of friends and associates of yours, and you would release or make available through Fresh Selects, the website, downloads of some local artists. You did some stuff with App in particular, with T&E. Yeah. You did some stuff with Il Mac.
Yeah, that was a little bit later. Yeah, that was like after. So that's one of my few regrets, is that just the way things worked out, and just all these people's schedules and things like that. The website shut down for like a year and a half while I was doing the fix. I would have the plan was to do both at the same time, so they can kind of feed in each other, because the website had a really strong following. So if we could use that to promote the shows outside of the city, that was always my thing. I wanted the fix to be a known party not just in Portland, but outside of Portland, so that when you are talking to someone from New York and you say you're from Portland, they're like, "Oh, yo, do you go to the Fix?"
Right.
And you're like, "What?" Like, and if you do, you feel cool about it. But if you don't, you're like, "No," like, but clearly I need to be.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But and that worked to some extent because VTech had a website. We were doing these videos, and we would. I was doing a lot of PR at the time, so we would get the videos posted on like Two Dope Boys and all these other websites. So it did work to a certain effect. And someday I had a live video stream, so a lot of people would hit me up on Twitter like while people were performing, like, "Yo, I'm watching, from Chicago or from wherever." So that was always cool. But yeah, I'm sorry. I think I cut off your question. But yeah,
no.
But once the website did come back after the Fix ended, the first thing we launched with was the Immaculate album. Was the Green Tape, which was that too was like a blessing. Like that's such a huge like exclusive,
Yeah.
And so for him to do that with me, I was really fortunate.
Yeah.
And then that was the time where I was focusing a lot more on local stuff. Because when I started, the idea was to incorporate the Thriller stuff into Fresh Selects, but Thriller didn't really work out.
Yeah.
So there didn't end up being that many releases. We did like one Devin Who beat tape, I think. We had like one Naughty beat tape, one from High Res. At the time, you couldn't get Ep to record anything. No diss to Ep, but he knows what I'm talking about. Anyone who's around at the time, they know you couldn't get him to record anything.
Yeah.
So, so not that much came out. So the website ended up kind of revolving around a lot of the music that I'm still kind of focusing on now. Just a lot of the stuff that kind of slips in between, where it's like it's really R&B music, but it's like hip hop production.
Yeah.
Some of it's just straight up hip hop. Some of it's just beats.
Yeah.
Like a lot of cats I'm working with now, like Mind Design. I was posting this stuff in like 2008 when I first started the site, and because him and Devin Who and Knowledge and Susie Analog, they had like a crew together called Clip Mode. So that was a big part of the sound. And I don't know. Finale from Detroit, Invincible, Foreign Exchange, like all that type of stuff. Yeah. I was what I was posting. There really wasn't much from Portland that I could work with. Yeah. And I kind of got some backlash from that. The few people who did know about me here would kind of get mad that I wasn't posting enough Portland stuff. But I was like, there just wasn't that much that appealed to me, and that much stuff that I really felt like connected to me and that would connect to the audience that I had at the time based on the other music I was posting,
Right.
I was like, I don't think the people who like Waajeed and Tiambe Lockhart and Tarak are going to like this song, you know? So, like, even if I did post this, it wouldn't really do much for either of us. Right. But then after doing the Fix, which was obviously a local thing, it was like a real life thing. Because up until that point, everything had been on the internet, you know? So it was cool to see people's reactions to your work in person and meet people who know about your stuff, and I don't know, it's just kind of, it made it more real. So I think that kind of influenced me to want to start, and I think Portland was just kind of getting better, and a lot of the music was progressing, and I was meeting more artists, I was doing more interesting stuff, or stuff I was interested in. So when I relaunched the website, there was definitely more of a focus on Portland hip hop. So we started with the Immaculate project, the Green Tape. Then we did, the T&E album, a beat tape with Taupe, 2 beat tapes with Taupe, another one with, did we do another one now? High Res, we did another one with him, but all types of different stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. So when did you transition? Because as you sit here talking about it, it's funny because I remember that, but I don't remember when you really transitioned from doing that, which you're providing a lot of great free music to, and I shouldn't say it like that.
No, that's what it was. Like, everything was free up until like a year ago. I never sold anything until I turned it into a label. And a lot of it was kind of on purpose. And I kind of wanted to, like I said earlier, like I never wanted to do a label until I knew I could do it right. Yeah. And so that's kind of like when you use the word guts, I was like, I don't know if it's guts. Because if I had guts, I would have just done it like years ago, you know? Yeah. And when I did do it, I was like, damn, I probably could have done this years ago. Right. But that's just not really my personality or my way of thinking. So I did all this, put out all this stuff for free. But and it was cool. I learned a lot from it, but in retrospect I'm like, damn, like maybe we could have at least I don't know, but it worked out how it worked out.
But so now you look at Fresh Selects right now. I mean, you've kind of touched on it. You've obviously connected with artists that you believe in, music that you dig. Some people like Mind Design in particular that you've been connected with for a while.
Yeah.
But when you get to where you are now, where you're releasing stuff, really releasing things under Fresh Selects as a label.
Yeah.
How do you pick those people that you want to work with on that level? Because it is a little bit different now.
Yeah, it is different. Like with the website, I would kind of be more open with it. Like if it was some stuff that I was into and I knew other people would be into, but it wasn't like my favorite artist that I would listen to all the time personally. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it's cool. Like we could do it. Like, you know, it didn't cost me any money. It just cost me energy and stuff, but you know, it would, if it was something I felt like the energy I put into it would come back in one way or another, then yeah, I'd be into it for the most part. But now it's like definitely more decisive and more, it's like more goal oriented. I think sometimes with the website I would just kind of, it wasn't following trends, but it was just kind of like following the opportunities. Like whoever reached out to me, I would do a lot of reaching out to artists too. But if you were really following the website in kind of like its second era, like after the fix, so like 2011 to 2002 or like mid 2013, it was a bit scattered. You know, I feel like if you were checking it, you could definitely like navigate your way through stuff, and I don't think any of it was whack. Like I think, you know, for the most part, if you like one thing on it, you'll likely like most other things on it. Yeah. But it was a little bit too hard to categorize, which I'm cool with personally, but I've kind of realized how that can work against you a lot of the time. But so with the label, I'm really trying to focus on kind of not one specific sound, kind of one specific sound, and kind of really nurture it and kind of have a more kind of decisive vision with it, and definitely more organized and more of a plan. So that's really what it is, and it's definitely more of a, it's weird because it's actually a business, but it's even more personal to me now, where it's really like only artists that like I listen to all the time on my own, and I'm just a huge fan of, and stuff that really speaks to me. Like there's even some projects where I've like passed on that people have reached out to me. I'm like, that'll do well, you know, like I know that'll do numbers and it won't really cost me that much, but it just like wasn't really the vision I had for the label at the time. So I was like, you know, fought with it in my head, but ultimately I passed on it. Yeah. But the stuff I'm working with is stuff I like really, truly, you know, believe in.
Yeah, yeah. Talking to Kenny Fresh of Fresh Select. So let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the level or the label and where it is now and what you've released so far. And that was kind of one of the things I wanted to ask you about, was just that sound, or do you have a goal for the label to have a specific sound or a specific style? And it sounds like that is the case.
Yeah, I kind of do, but I also don't want to limit it and put it in a box. It's just kind of, it's like, I didn't really realize it when I started the label, but it kind of like, especially just even having this conversation, it's again just kind of making a home. It's the same reason I started the website, because there was no other website that was covering all of this stuff and doing it in a way that was, you know, worthy of the music. And then since then, there's been a bunch of other websites that all cover that type of music. And not saying they were influenced by me or anything. They all kind of came up of their own accord. Like, OK Player had been around forever, but then it kind of transitioned into a blog. And then, you know, and then I found out about Movement in Amsterdam. I think they started around the same time as me, but I wasn't aware of them. And they cover kind of a lot of the same stuff. So I was like, OK, cool. And that's kind of like why I transitioned out. I'm like, oh, OK, like it's cool. Like it's covered. Right. Like I don't like to be anywhere that I'm not needed, you know? Right. But then, and then so when the second time, like when I first started the website, it was kind of like exclusive tracks like that didn't make albums, or just kind of like online only singles. Or if they were putting out an album, they had one free single you would give away for free. It was kind of how you would do it at the time. Now you just kind of stream it on SoundCloud. You don't have to give it away for free. But at the time, you know, if you were putting out an album, you would put out the first single for free download, and then maybe a second single for free download, and then try to sell the album. Right. which didn't really work, and it's kind of better now with the Bandcamp system and stuff. But anyways, so my website was like, I would premiere the first single from like Shafiq Hussein or, you know, whoever, and then promote that their album was coming out. Then the second time around, I was doing, and then I would also write about other stuff that was non-exclusive to the site, like, oh, Foreign Exchange has a new album out, and, you know, Foreign Exchange was on all these other sites, but I liked their stuff, so I would just, write about it.
Yeah.
Then the second time, I was only doing exclusive stuff. So I was basically like an online label. We just weren't selling anything.
Yeah.
It's like the Immaculate Project. It was a full album.
Yeah.
And, you know, they pretty much did it themselves, but we kind of had a lot of conversations, and I was somewhat like a project manager on it.
Yeah.
And then the T&E album I was super involved with. All the, like, Kung Fu Grip from Seattle, all the beat tapes and stuff. I was there when we were mixing it, and, you know, I was doing the art direction. When my designer would do the art, we would go back and forth and have conversations about it.
Yeah.
So that's when I was really kind of like, even if it was subconsciously, kind of training myself how to do a label.
Yeah.
So... Damn, what was the question?
So no, we're just talking about, like, ultimately was the goal to have
sound.
Yeah.
So,
or is it, or can you even say now? I mean, because the label is, I mean, realistically, the label in, you know, in what it is right now, it's still pretty young.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm sorry. That was the point I was getting to. So yeah, so I started the website to fill this void if there was no website covering all this stuff. And then, yeah, so the second time around, I was doing all original stuff, and I was reaching out to a lot of artists who are now, kind of, the game had changed now, and a lot of people were putting out stuff themselves through Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists were doing, you know, well with it, but they were doing it completely themselves. So they would have, like, no press, and they wouldn't release any singles. They would just kind of do, which is now kind of called the Beyonce, you know, where they would just put out the album.
Right.
But they weren't Beyonce, so that was the problem. Like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it wasn't really getting this full attention. So I would reach out to them. A lot of times I would get frustrated. Like, Mind Design was one of them. He was putting out all these great projects. I'm like, yo, man, like, why don't you tell me you were going to put this out tomorrow? Like, give me, like, one song to write about, you know, yesterday, and then drop it today, or, you know, whatever. And he was kind of like, oh, I don't know. I didn't think about it. Like, I just made it, and I put it, got up artwork. Like, I needed rent. I just put it up.
Yeah. You
know, which is cool. Like, it's totally... You know, it's tight that people have that freedom, and his stuff was doing great. You know, he didn't need the press, but I was just like, but it could just go that much, you know, farther. And he was kind of like, whatever. You know?
Yeah.
But so seeing that, I was kind of seeing the need again. You know, I was like, I don't really feel like a website is needed that much, but there needs to be a label, because a lot of the labels that were kind of in place were like passing up a lot of these artists, so they just weren't aware of them. Like, how is Low Leaf not signed?
Right.
What? Like, she's super talented, completely original sound, makes all her own beats, she plays the harp, the piano, like, has a great look, she does all her artwork. Like, what? How's Low Leaf not signed, you know? And Mind Design too, he's putting out all these amazing projects. And then what really, you know, changed the game for me is he started putting out these cassettes on his Bandcamp, but he was just like he wasn't like getting them pressed in a factory. He was like going to Goodwill, buying like an exercise collection that came with like 25 cassettes, and he would like cross out, you know, CrossFit, you know, tape 1. He would just cross that out, and he would make like a paper collage. It was really dope, because each one would have its own cover, had his handwriting on it, and he would just dub over it, you know, his project. And sometimes, like, there was one that I bought from his, and they would sell out in like the first day, like in an hour. But so I bought one, and then when his tape would end, there'd be like a few minutes of silence, and it would come on, and it'd be like stock tips, or like how to like make money. And I was like, what is Mind Design getting at with this? I was like, oh, this is just the tape that he was recording over. But I was seeing that he could do that, and I was like, man, like, that's so dope. I'm like, so I just hit him up, and I was like, yo, like, I love what you're doing with these tapes, but like, you know, he would make like 25 copies, and they would sell out in an hour. So I was like, yo, let me put some money into it, and let's do like 250 tapes and see if we could sell those out in like a month. You know, and he was like, okay. Like, it was just that easy. So I was like, all right. So I started. So that was it. Like, now I'm a label. Like, it was, you know, that easy at first. And it was just kind of, I don't know. I don't think I really had the full idea at the time. I was like, oh, I'll just be a website still. And then I'll kind of like have cassettes available. And then, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I was just like, nah, like, okay, like, this is it. Like, I've always been one to do it. Like, let's just do it for real. And And then it just kind of started to come together. And Low Leaf, she reached out to me. We were having conversations before about, I was trying to get her distribution just to kind of get her the stuff that she put out by herself up on iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So then when I announced the label, and she knows my design, they actually lived together for a minute. There was like a really cool house with like two of them and two other really cool artists that I'd hung out at one time when I was in LA. So, you know, she knows, you know, about him. So when I announced that I was putting out my designs project, she texted me like, hey, can my next album come out on Fresh Selects? And I was like, yes, definitely. Like I mean, that really, like, that text message like really cemented it. Like, okay, like I'm gonna do this for real. Like, let's do it. And I just kind of hit the ground running and haven't really looked back. And I just been kind of, but I've still, me being like, again, not so much with the guts and, you know, being bold. I've been kind of doing baby steps, you know. So Mind Designs album again was just on cassette. It's 250 copies, and the goal was to sell in a month. And on the 30th day, we sold our 250th cassettes. Like, okay, cool. Like, it worked out. I didn't hire a press agent. I did it all myself. Yeah. We did a music video for it all myself, and it was cool. I was like, okay, I think I could like really do this. Yeah. And then we did a remix project, and I kind of like worked with someone, you know, to help me with press a little bit, kind of like put my foot in the water. Mm-hmm. Then with the Low Leaf project, it was like more of a, My Designs was one that he put out himself like a month or so earlier, so it was a little bit of a re-release, but not really, because he had never put it on cassette. Yeah. So we added bonus tracks and all this other stuff. But Low Leaf was like the first like original album, and her stuff is just it's different than his. His is like beats, and it's kind of like a more niche thing. But it's funny because that niche has more of a following, and then her stuff is like, especially that album is kind of like some of the songs were almost like pop, but there wasn't the following for it yet because it kind of doesn't have a genre, and mine is, you know, the beat stuff is just such like a automatic machine. If you just kind of like, oh, we got a beat tape, it's just a certain few thousand people who are just down, you know, off top. But but Low Leaf is like you kind of have to create the lane a little bit, and that's what the label is. The label is trying to create the lane for people like Low Leaf, people like Coultraine, who's, you know, the most recent release on the label, and then a bunch of other artists we have coming up, where it's just like, I don't know, I don't want to come up with a name for it, a subgenre or anything, because that's how neo soul got started. There was this guy, Kedar Massenberg. He was the manager of D'Angelo and Erykah Badu, and he kind of, so the story goes, you know, as I've heard it, is that he's the one who coined the term neo soul for how to just kind of a way to promote them and to describe their sound. So then it kind of became this subgenre. And then a lot of music came out that, like, you know, D'Angelo just made his music, and then this guy came up with the term after the fact. Same with Erykah Badu. But then a lot of artists came like, I'm gonna make neo soul music, and it was just so derivative, and it was so awful for, you know, I mean, there. So I don't want to like create it. I don't want to like, you know, call it like future soul or alternative soul. But to me, it's just like music that's rooted equally in R&B and soul music, and also just in beats and like hip hop production. And the stuff that I'm drawn towards is more definitely a focus on songwriting. Lyrics is really big with me, and originality. And like a little bit of like, I don't know, I like a little bit of like experimentalism or musicianship, things like that. So I think there's like qualities that they all kind of have in common, but I don't even know if Coultraine and Low Leaf are in the same genre, you know? So, and My Design definitely isn't in the same genre as them, but the fact that they're on the same label, now at this point we only have 4 releases out, but I think by the time we get to like 10, I think it'll start to make sense. And now it's fun because I'm starting to see people kind of put it together. Now that we put out the Coultraine album, they're like, oh, I kind of see like what you're doing here. Because when we just did the Mind Design project, a lot of people thought I was just going to be like another beat label, because that's kind of like a thing that exists, like labels that only do cassettes and they only do beat tapes and stuff like that. So again, like, I'm not needed there like that. There's labels who have been doing it before me, and they do it better than me. Like, you know, I don't need to like try to do that. Then when I did the Low Leaf stuff, people were like, oh, okay, like, that's kind of weird. Like, you know, what are you doing? Like, what does that have to do with that? And then I think the Coultraine stuff, I think now is starting to come clear that there's kind of like a bigger overall sound between it all. So I think people are starting to catch on. But I think, my goal is just to kind of for Fresh Selects to be that term, for that sound, like Motown or Stax. That's a bit ambitious. I know. I'm not trying to be Berry Gordy or anything like that. But just kind of.
But if it happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah, whatever. But either way, I think just as far as like name recognition and kind of like being a home for that and kind of being like somewhat of like a lighthouse where people like when you're searching for like a term or like I don't know, it's got like that weird R&B kind of like the Fresh Selects type of stuff. That's it. Like,
get it.
Put the flag in it because there's no label that's doing that. So that's kind of where I saw the need there, and I was like, all right, I could be that because that's me anyways. That's the stuff I listen to, and that was something that would kind of frustrate me when I was doing the website because that was more so dealing with the opportunities that came to me because again, all the projects had zero money put into them and zero money come out of them, so that kind of limited myself to local artists or to just a certain type of artist. So people started to think that I was just like only into Portland hip hop or only into hip hop. I was like, nah, like if you were to like kick it with me or like, come over my house or, drive in my car, like I'm listening to Low Leaf, or I'm listening to Coultraine, or I'm listening to, like stuff like that or like, or older stuff or like singer-songwriter kind of stuff or jazz music, So, but there wasn't really the format of the website. I kind of like limited myself unintentionally, so there wasn't really a way for me to express the music that I was into because I didn't have direct connections with those genres, and I couldn't really put out projects without putting any money up, for that. So now I finally feel like I could. It's funny because I don't write the songs, I don't make any music, so it's not about me. I'm just a channel and a vehicle for the artist. But at the same time, I finally feel like I could like express myself. And I finally feel like I'm working with music that like truly reflects the music that I'm into. Yeah. And that's super exciting for me. That's like the funnest part of it.
That's what's up, man. Kenny Fresh or Fresh Selects. So something else to celebrate with a label. You had an opportunity to put out your first vinyl.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
nuts,
like,
bro.
And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. It was kind of like baby steps. We did cassettes first because I don't, I still buy CDs, but I think I'm really in the minority when it comes to that. So, it's hard in being a digital label and selling it didn't really appeal to me that much because I'm so into artwork and packaging and stuff. So I was like, and just doing vinyl. So that's why I never started a label. I was always like working a day job and doing like marketing and stuff. And I was like, one day when I like make a bunch of money, I'm gonna quit and start a record label, But then when Mind Design started doing it, and he was spending like $20 to make his tapes, and then he would make like $100 or $200-$300. I was like, oh, okay, like you could do it for nothing, So like with like not to get in too specific in the numbers, but I realized that we could do his album for super cheap.
Right.
Like at the time, I was way broke, like, when I did it. Like, I there was times in my life where now I'm like, man, I should have started it during the VTech era when I had sponsorship and I sold them my website. And, they were giving me checks. Like, I could have had a crazy label back then, but I didn't really have the vision, or I didn't know that it could be done, this way. And I don't know if it could have been done this way back then. Mm-hmm. But now there's kind of like a renaissance and an interest in cassettes. Yeah. So it's kind of, thankful for that. But yeah, so, did it with each project. I kind of like, okay, I'm just like, this is a risk. Let me just put in a little bit of money, see if we can make it back. Yeah. Like, oh, we made it back. Like, okay, cool. Low Leaf's album. Let me put in a little bit more, see if we can make that back. Yeah. Oh, we made that back. Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah, yeah. And then so each one, you kind of, step it up a bit. And with Low Leaf, I don't do things how you're supposed to. You're supposed to have an album done and then set a release date like 4 to 6 months from that point, from when it's done. Right. That's way too long for me. And a lot of the artists I work with, again, are used to just finishing an album and just putting it on Bandcamp the next day, Right. So So it just didn't work for us. So like now that I'm working with like press agents and stuff, they really ask for at least 2 months advance. I'm like, okay, but even sometimes I push it. Like I think I'm gonna put out an album in like February, and it's now the end of December and it's not done. Yeah. But it needs to come out in February because that just feels like a February album to me. Right. But anyway, so as we were getting close to the end of when Low Leaf's album was gonna come out, she had kind of talked about like, I feel like there was a lot more attention on it than I don't know. Not that I wasn't surprised because I think her music is amazing. Like it definitely deserves the attention. But again, it was my first time working with a press agent, so I didn't really know how I was gonna go. So then I was like, we were kind of talking to each other like, damn, like maybe we should do it on vinyl. Like I was like, yeah, but that's a lot of money to make back, and there's other costs involved with the project, like the press agent is a cost, and mastering it, the artwork, and all this other stuff. So the cost of vinyl on top of it, I was like, I don't know, like I don't really have that kind of money. And so I made her a promise. I was like, all right, if we could like make this money back from the cassettes like in a certain amount of time, then we could do vinyl. She was like, okay, cool, like I'm grateful for her for being so like patient with me, because I feel like she's such a huge talent, and I think now she could probably go to a label that's much bigger. So just the fact that she was like willing, because at the time she had done a few albums on her own, but then this label from Germany hit her up and re-released 2 of her EPs from Bandcamp on vinyl. So at this point, so she had kind of like reached that point where she's an artist who could be on vinyl. But I wasn't a label who could do vinyl, so I had to kind of catch up to her. So I appreciate her, being patient. But we made that, we made that mark of the goal that we had set to reach. We reached it. So I was like, all right, cool. So we did the vinyl, and like I really geeked out on it. I had a lot of fun with the packaging. We made like a spot UV gloss or reflects, and we put lockout grooves, so even when the record's over, it like plays like a loop. We did like colored the insides of the jacket, which I'd never really seen anyone do before, and I was like, how come nobody does that? Like it's always just blank white in there, just all these things I'd wondered about as a fan, like how come people don't do this? And then I started to see the cost of it, and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of see why people don't do it, but I would do it anyways. Right. And so that was like one of the things that I'm kind of like, okay, now like she's an artist who can put out vinyl. I'm now a label that can do vinyl. Not for every project. Like I think a lot of the stuff I'm working with is still kind of like a considerable risk up front, because it's like in the new year a lot of the projects are going to be like first time artists, but so putting a few $1,000s into the budget just to do vinyl, just for the sake of doing vinyl, isn't really doing them a favor, because if the project doesn't make any money, it doesn't help anyone. But yeah, so now I'm kind of like, okay, like for the right project I can do it. And now it's starting to feel like a real thing, like like I'm like a real label. I feel like Pinocchio or something. Like it's really coming together.
That's what's up, man. And then you mentioned you just released the Coultraine project, which is dope, because I know that's an artist that you've actually been working with for a long time.
Man, he's one of my favorites. Like I met him through Waajeed, so that was like, it was such a blessing in so many different ways to work with Waajeed, because he taught me so much. They had me do a little bit of everything within the music industry. But the fact that Waajeed was a producer, he's constantly looking for new talent, and he had kind of put me on to a lot of my favorite artists just by who he was collaborating with. So I found out about, Georgia Ann Muldrow, who's someone I went on to work with as well, through, her being on the first PPP album, and Tarak, and Invincible, and Tiambe Lockhart, all these great people. So then when it came time for him to do his second PPP album, he was going to have a whole new cast do it, and it was going to be a whole bunch of different, a different singer on each song, like the first album. But then he met Coultraine, and I think he was just so blown away by his talent. He was like, he switched the whole format. He was like, all right, Coultraine's gonna write every song on the album and sing like half of them, the other half like, we'll get female singers to sing, what he wrote. But so when I went to New York to fly out to the tour in 2007, Coultraine hadn't put anything out yet. He had a MySpace page. I think he had like one song up,
Yeah.
and it was cool. Like I really loved it, but I forget. I think it was just if you know Coultraine's first album, he had a song called Untitled, Follow Your Lead, and I think that was the only song he had up, which was like a cool song, but I didn't really know that much. And then Waajeed had a recording studio in his apartment, so me, him, and Tarak were kind of talking and just kind of going over the plan and stuff for the tour, and then Coultraine was in the other room recording, and he had the headphones on, so we couldn't hear the beat. We could just hear him recording, so we'd be talking like, yeah, so when we get to Amsterdam, then we turn like, yo, this dude is like singing his ass off, like, who is this? Like damn. And I met him, he was just real cool, and then so then we came back from the tour, and then I think like January of 2008, if I'm not wrong, like somewhere right around there, he came out with his first solo album on CD. So I bought that, and that album is incredible. I was like, damn, like I knew he was dope, and I knew he could sing, but then I got the album, and just his writing is what, you know, like I said earlier, I'm really into lyrics and songwriting, and that's something that in R&B is just like, has really kind of, the emphasis kind of been taken away from that, like in just not even in recent years, in recent generations, you know, it's been like a minute, like since like Stevie Wonder and Prince, like there's not even that many great R&B songwriters that I could really name, like past like the 80s and 90s, you know. So yeah, his album just really captured me, and then I don't even know kind of how, but we just kind of started talking more often on MySpace and stuff, and then I reached out to him about putting out songs through the website, and we put out a song called The Wanderer that he had kind of laying around, and we did that, and then then just through the years we've gone through a bunch of stuff. There was a time where I had a label deal to be an imprint under another label, and that was kind of like the genesis of this idea, kind of being the home for this like R&B soul sound, and Coultraine was the first artist that I had signed, and then kind of to go along with that, we did a 7-inch where it was The Wanderer, and then a new song, Balance and Act, which I don't even know, we didn't have a title for what I did, but I hit up the label and kind of like project managed it coming out through this other label, and then like his album was going to come out through me on my label like a few months afterwards, but the deal fell through and everything, but yeah, and then I taught myself to make music videos just so that he could have music videos, and that was another thing that I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't want to do it until I could do it right. So so I've worked with Coultraine in many different shapes and forms, you know, up until this point. So for me to finally put out an album with him, you know, through my label is like, it really is just another example of things coming full circle, and it's something like I'm really, I don't know, proud of, and like feel fortunate to be involved with. And the album is like amazing. Just as a fan of Coultraine, I'm like, this is exactly the album he needed to make now. And this whole thing is, all his albums are telling a story. So just where he took the story on this album and just kind of the direction he took it, like, is dope. And from the fans' reaction, like, people feel the same way I do, so it's dope. I'm like, okay, like, I'm right in tune with him, like, because I'm just a fan of his as well, you know.
Yeah. Well, so let folk know how to get to the website, to the label's site. If they want
that's the thing now. Like, just like I was saying with when I was doing the fix, like, if the website would have been up at the time, it would have been like really a thing, you know.
Right.
And here we are again. Like, now I don't have a website. I just have like a Bandcamp page where all the releases are up.
Right.
So that, you just go to freshselects.net.
Okay.
And it'll redirect you to freshselects.bandcamp.com.
Okay.
But eventually, I will have a fully functional website. We'll have the archives of all the stuff from when it was just a blog. And then we'll kind of have like new content to go along with the releases. But, you know, I'm waiting on designers, and I still don't even have a logo. I've been doing this whole label for a full year now with no logo or anything. So I've been waiting for that to kind of, you know, be in place before we did the website, but we'll get there eventually. I don't really care. In the meantime, I'm just keep putting out releases. That's like my main focus, you know.
That's what's up, man. Kenny Fresh or Fresh Selects. So I gotta just take a couple of minutes now to talk about tight songs. So it's so cool.
I still laugh every time I hear the name.
It's so
That's
cool.
The best name I could have came up with.
It's, you know, so again, my journey with you, our relationship over time, when I started doing Welcome to the Neighborhood, always wanted to have you on because I feel like you have such a rich history and appreciation of music, and you know, when I talk to you, you share so much with me that I don't even know about. And so with everything that we've talked about, from the blog to now having the record label to now having the radio show, where again you get an opportunity to share with people like you've done with me and so many people that I know that you've touched, sharing with people this art that they may not have come across otherwise, I think it's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, that's really like what, at the end of the day, that's what all of this has been so far. Like, out of everything I've done, it's all taken on different formats and different kind of forms and different plans, but it's all just been about putting people onto music that I really believe in, right. And kind of, you know, and with a special focus on kind of like the underdog, and right. Kind of champion people who don't have all the benefits of certain machines and you know, like major labels or just money right. Behind them, you know. So yeah, from the website to the fix to the label to the radio show, that's all it's been. And at the same time, in a weird way, it's also like that's me being creative and me expressing myself, right. Like through just the music that kind of speaks for me and right, expresses right. Myself for me. So yeah, the radio show has been cool, and that's something that I always wanted to, well, not always, but like the last few years I've been really wanting to do, and it came from like being on your show, being on the Soundbox Dina B show on K-Boo, yeah. And then whenever I go to LA, there's a really good show out there called Sound Waves on KPFK. They always have me on, and just between that, I would just go on. They would like talk to me for a little bit, and I'd play like 15 minutes or like 20 minutes of songs. And it was always fun, you know. Yeah. And it just came to a point. I was like, man, if I had like a radio show, like that'd be really cool. Like I just kind of put it out there. I think I reached out to you. Was like, man, you know how I could get a show? Yeah. And you know, and then here you go, this new station, you know, comes along, X-Ray, and it's, again, things coming full circle. Like the program director here, Aaron Hall, he was a bartender at Someday Lounge when I was doing the fix. Okay. So it's just like, wow, like, okay, so he knows like firsthand, like, right. And that's one of the things he told me. He was like, yeah, I know, like, you know what you're doing when it comes to music, and I've seen you in, you know, crazy situations, and you hold your own, like, you know, I know you could do this. I was like, okay. Cool. So, but they wouldn't let me call it Fresh Selects because, you know, kind of FCC rules about promoting your own stuff. Right. And I'm not really good at coming up with names. I just like things to be super literal. So I was like, man, what is it going to be? And I was like, well, I was going to play, like, what am I going to play? I was like, I'll just play songs that I think are tight. Right. Like, well, all right, let's call it Tight Song. And the radio hated the name. Yeah. And they didn't like the name at all. But I had to fight them on it, and I just knew, I don't know, I'd like, when you said it, I laughed. Yeah. Anytime someone says it, I still laugh. You know, I don't even really like Fresh Selects as a name, to be honest. But Tight Songs is, maybe it's just because it's newer. Yeah. But I'm like, damn, maybe I should have called the label that. But anyways, yeah. So that's kind of like the other thing I'm doing. That's been good because sometimes with the label, especially in our first year, this past year, like there's been some downs, like put out Mind Design's album in November of last year, then a little remix EP in January, Low Leaf's album in April, and then I didn't put out anything else until this month. I put out Coultraine. Yeah. So I was like 6 months or 8 months where I didn't have anything, you know, really to talk about as far as a new release. But having the radio show every week was super beneficial. Again, not to be too corny, but just to express myself, right. to share all this music, all these great artists and all these great songs that are coming out on other labels, or, you know, a lot of his artists putting it out themselves. Yeah. So yeah, it's been huge. Like I'm really thankful that I'm able to do both at the same time. Because I think if I just did the radio show, it wouldn't really be enough. I wouldn't feel like I was really fulfilling, you know, like everything that I had to share. And if I just had the label and I had all that dead time in between releases, because I'm still just kind of doing it all out of, you know, my very shallow pockets, and, you know, just not that many resources, so things take time. So yeah, having both has been dope.
That's what's up, man. You can catch Tight Songs on X-Ray FM. You can check out the website www.xray.fm. And definitely tune in. You can tune in worldwide if you're not in the Portland metro area. And then the last thing I want to ask you about, sort of related to the web show, to the radio show, is the guest mixes that you have, man. I mean, you have
that's
an
been
opportunity
cool
to connect
too.
with some pretty amazing artists, man. Speak on that.
Yeah, that's been at first, because this is my first radio show, and like I said, I would be guests on other people's show, and I would kind of like bring like 20-30 minutes worth of music. And so then after doing it week after week, I was like, damn, 2 hours is a lot of time. And I don't really like to repeat stuff too much. Like if I play a song one week, I don't want to play it again the next week, but maybe 2 weeks after. But then overall, I don't really want to play a song more than like 3 or 4 times, just because I don't know why. But just 'cause I feel like there's so much out there, and I just kind of want to like push myself to keep it, refreshing and keep it new.
Yeah.
So it kind of started. I needed it for a few reasons, because one, I couldn't really fill all that airtime myself without kind of repeating myself or just getting too far. Like there's a lot of music I listen to that I don't get a chance to fully go into on the show.
Yeah.
But I think that's good, because I feel like I'm already asking a lot of the audience, because I'll kind of start with some hip-hop, and I think people are like, oh, this is cool, and then I'll just go way left and go into some super weird stuff. So like anyone who could really stick with me for the whole 2 hours, at the end of the show, I'm always super thankful. Like, yo, thank you I know this isn't an easy 2 hours, but like you might have tuned in for one thing and got like that plus something completely different.
Yeah.
So I try to like be mindful and not go too off on tangents.
Yeah.
So the only way I could keep myself within kind of the certain sound I was going for, which is pretty much the same sound as the label, but with a little bit more branches, just because it's more frequent, was to kind of have some guest mixes. And also I wanted to have some new like content to share, because again, all this downtime in between the releases, I wanted to have something to put on the SoundCloud, just kind of keep things new and keep a certain momentum going. And then it was also just kind of a cool way to show, like every release I put out, or so far both Mind Design and Low Leaf have done guest mixes. It's just cool to kind of see, where a producer's head is at, or where, what an artist is listening to. That's always been something that I've been into, and that's how I find out about a lot of the artists that I'm signing, is from other people that I work with or other artists. Yeah. So yeah, it's just cool. It's just kind of fun to kind of give someone else the show for like 45 minutes and see what they do with it. Yeah. And then I got the homie Gangster Doodles, someone I came across on Instagram, and he does a drawing of all of them, and he's blown up. Like he's crazy now. Like he's like one of the most famous Instagram accounts that you can see. Yeah. So like I don't know, that was another like kind of lightning in a bottle thing where I caught him where he was under like not that like social media numbers matter, but he was at like less than like 1,000 followers or something, but his work was like killer, and I was like, yo man, you're gonna be huge in a minute. He was like, whatever, like whatever you need. And then we would do him, and then now he's at, I don't even know where he's at now, but he's crazy, way more than I have, I know that much. But he's super cool and super humble, and he's been down to he's been sticking with me and still down to do it, which is blows my mind every month. I'm like, you still down? Like, I'm like, you sure you're down to do this? He's like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's fun. Like, okay, cool. So we do it like once a month. Sometimes this month we have like 2 back-to-back. Yeah. But I'm just kind of doing them as they come. Yeah. But it's just kind of me being lazy. Need to get someone else on the show sometimes.
No doubt, man. Kenny Fresh Selects. Brother, thank you so much for jumping on, man. Like I said, this, I feel like this again is an example of what you did for me, which was just connect me with good people, good artists, and now you're doing that even on a broader level with the label and with the radio show, and you always keep it so humble as you do that. And so like I said, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to speak on. I feel like I learned some things about myself tonight. Things I forgot about, or sometimes, it's hard to, all these things just kind of happen as they do, and then I don't always take the time to reflect back on them. So sometimes just conversations like this, I'm like, damn, like I kind of have been working towards this for like 10 years, whether I knew it at the time or not. But yes, I appreciate the opportunity.
For sure, man. So go check out freshselects.net, man. Right now, the latest release is the one from Coultraine. But as we move into 2015, I know that there's some pretty cool stuff that is on the docket that will be dropping pretty soon.
I like to keep it pretty much under wraps. Like, we don't really, if you notice, I don't really announce too much stuff until it exists, till we have a first single. But we've got some projects I'm really excited about for the new year. So hopefully people stick with us and keep an open mind and are open to, even if you don't like it at first, listen to it twice. I think you'll dig it. Yeah, it'll grow on you.
And then let people know where you at on social media, man.
It's pretty much Fresh Selects on everything. On Twitter, it's Fresh Selects, one word. On Instagram, someone took the name Fresh Selects. It might have even been me, just like kind of trying to do a placeholder, but I forgot the password because it's like, no, they've never posted on it. But I don't know. If you own the name Fresh Selects on Instagram, please give it back to me. But so on there, I'm Kenny Fresh Selects on one word. But on Facebook, you can just search Fresh Selects. And SoundCloud's kind of like the main thing I'm focused on now. That's been like the biggest, that's like our biggest audience right now. It's growing so quick, largely in part to largely due to the SoundCloud, to the guest selects mixes and all the singles we drop. But yeah, SoundCloud.com/FreshSelects. And that's like the best way to kind of, if you've never heard of anything I've put out, that's a good place to start because you can just listen to all the kind of singles from the projects and you don't have to just kind of, Bandcamp can kind of be a bit much when people go to it. They're like, I don't know where to start. So yeah, go to SoundCloud.com/FreshSelects. Click around, play some stuff. I think you'll find something you like.
No doubt. All right, y'all. Once again, thanks to Kenny Fresh Selects. You can subscribe to the podcast DJ Klyph Presents on iTunes. We'll also post this up on SoundCloud as well, or you can go to the website www.djklyph.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and for listening. God bless you, and we will be back to do it again soon. All right, y'all. Peace.